We're going to check in with my wife and see if she's happy. Happy wife, happy life. Hope she's hope she's home or somewhere and I can reach her. Uh-oh.
She's happy.
She's happy. She's just not available. Let's see.
Hang on. Hey there.
Hey, are you happy?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm happy.
All right, I'll see you later.
Where are you?
I'm just sitting with a monk. We were checking. I'll see you later. I love you.
I'm just not going to talk through this whole one. How about I do that?
Listen, you're doing phenomenally well. I think people
I'll be
right
the
now are
monk.
lining up to
I'll
hear
be-
what you've got
Oh,
to
please,
say.
Conrad.
Will you get over here where you belong?
Oh, my
Are we
heart.
rolling? Yeah. Are we rolling? Are we on? All right, then I want to say welcome to everybody who's out there, and welcome back once again to the barn in Pittsfield. As always, I am joined this time on my left by Joe DeSena, founder of Spartan. I've got the beautiful, lovely Sephra, whatever,
Thanks,
standing
Chris.
next to me.
He's like,
And I've got Dr. Johnny Waite to my far right. In today's interview, we're going to be talking to a monk, Dandapani.
Dandapani.
Dandapani, the monk. So,
I grew up with a monk in my living room.
this was your mother, or was...
No, we can get into it though.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of like kung fu. That's a monk, right?
David Carradine, yeah.
I think that's like a samurai. That's like a ninja.
That's not a ninja. That was a monk. Those were
Oh,
monks.
I wasn't going to
Sephra,
talk.
Anyway.
we're dating ourselves here.
Anyway, I think so. Joe is going to talk to this fella, and we're going to see if kind of the image matches up to reality.
How do you pronounce your name?
Are we starting? Or
We're
just-
started.
or
We're started. We're starting up the podcast.
Okay.
We've just confirmed my wife is happy. I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Dandapani.
Dandapani.
Yeah.
And you're from India?
No, Sri Lankan DNA, but
Okay.
I grew up in Australia, so I'm Australian.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And how does somebody become a monk?
You apply like anything else,
It's like getting a license, a driver's license.
pretty much. Well,
Long lines when you go.
Oh, terrible. Well, the celibacy usually keeps the line short.
Celibacy.
Yeah,
All
kills.
monks must remain celibate? Or only,
well,
the
at least
only the good ones?
Only the good ones. Well, it depends on the tradition, but most monks, yes, in general, are celibate. But yeah, to answer your question, I belong to the Hindu faith, the Hindu religion, and I was a monk in my guru's monastery in Hawaii. So it was a very traditional monastery. So you basically get to know him first, study with him for a while, and then you go to the monastery to join and go through a process of training before you get accepted for a year of training.
How long were you in the monastery?
10 years, yeah.
Wow. So can I tell you a joke about a monastery?
I've got 10 for every one that you have.
I don't even, it might be true. So I
Not
was
that I'm
told
competitive,
this
but-
woman went to a monastery where they said you're only allowed 2 words every 5 years.
I know that one.
You know that one?
Yeah.
Can I tell it anyway? Because I really like
Tell
it.
it, it's a good one.
And so I guess she does the 5 years, and they bring her out and they say, give me the 2 words. And she said, bed hard. Goes back in 5 more years, comes out, 2 words, food bad. 15 years in at the end, they say, give us your 2 words. She says, I quit. They say, we knew you were going to quit. You've been complaining since you got here.
It's a good one,
pretty
right?
good.
Yeah.
But is it like that?
How so? That people complain?
No, I mean, not that. That it's that difficult and that strict and that, I mean, not, obviously you can speak.
Yeah, every monastery is different. The monastery I was in was quite strict. And the people that went there because they wanted to do it. You don't become a monk because you think it's a fad or it's the next thing to do. It's pretty serious. I mean, you give up your family. I didn't talk to my family, my friends, any of my relatives. I spoke to my family twice a year on the phone, but never talked to any of my relatives or friends again for 10 years. You're living a celibate life. You give up things that you love, basic things.
Material things.
Yeah, even just like food preference. You know, you like chocolate or ice cream, and
It's gone.
And people go out and just buy Starbucks coffee when they're feeling like having one, and you don't have that. You're basically stripped of all the people and things in your life, bringing you to the point where you learn to lean on your own spine, and that's really the training. You know, how can you lean on your own spine without being dependent on someone or something else? And I look at most people around us live with little patches. You know, if something's bothering you, you'll turn to your phone or go buy a drink or eat something. But we didn't have anything to turn to, so we had to turn to ourselves. And you really end
But
up...
on the flip side, nothing's really bothering you because you're not interacting with.
Well, that's the thing. You start to discover yourself and the amount of stuff that's inside of you. It's unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah, and that's probably the toughest thing in the monastery. It's not really the monastery itself, but facing yourself. Of all the things
You're looking in the mirror basically.
all day.
Right?
All day.
And so,
it's
what
not
are
easy.
some of the things you find, a person finds?
You find really amazing stuff, good things about you, and then you find things that are not pleasant as well, that come up. You know, things from your past that you've never wanted to face or don't want to admit.
You've got to deal with it.
You have to deal with it. There's no patch, right? You can't go out and eat something or call a friend or go online and distract yourself. So you have to face yourself, and that really starts to build character after a while.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
like
part of the
a 15-year endurance race.
I've never done it, so it's hard to
You
compare.
did,
but
you did
yeah.
it basically, right? I mean, when you start to, I mean, that's when people say, well, Joe, why would you go run 100 miles? And I say it's meditative. What do you mean? Well, you get back to just water, food, and shelter. That's all you want. Just give me water, food, and shelter. I don't need anything else. I don't need money at that moment, right? You're at mile 70, you're broken.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with being a monk. You're broken at some point. You know, the first year goes by and you have the sense of pride of being a monk. You know, you got your robes, your beads, you think you can walk through walls and levitate. And after the second year, you're going like, well, this is going to be the rest of my life.
Right.
And you live in a hut that's only 10 feet by 10 feet with no electricity, no plumbing, no toilet, and you're laying there in your little futon mattress thinking, this is it. This is the next 100 years of my life. However long you're going to live. And you get broken down a lot.
How
And
many,
most people,
how many times did you want to escape?
not so much escape. I definitely thought of leaving many times.
Right.
But, you know, I think I went in there I wanted to be a monk since I was 4 years old. So, you know.
Was there, that's interesting, was there a child's book or something that you had? Like, how did that happen?
I was born in Malaysia, and I remember quite clearly, actually, a monk visited our home, and only my mom and I were home, and as soon as I saw him, and he had the beads and the face paint and the robes and everything, as soon as I saw him, I said, that's me. I didn't know he was a monk, I didn't know what he did, but it was this instant recognition of, that's me.
And that was a superhero in today, right?
Yeah.
You saw a superhero.
You did, but you know,
Right.
it was something different. You know, I wanted to be a soccer player growing up. I wanted to be a Hollywood star and all these other kind of things. But the monks stuck with me throughout my whole life growing up. And every year went by, that feeling became more and more intense. And then it was really about finding the best teacher. And I found, you know, I ran across hundreds of teachers and none of them I felt were great. Finally, I met my guru who I thought was good because he challenged me.
Right.
And that's what I really wanted, a teacher that wouldn't compromise.
How big of a community is the monk community?
In general?
In general, globally. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of monks, or?
Oh, thousands. Yeah. Within the Hindu faith itself, 3 million is the estimate.
3 million monks.
Yeah.
Wow.
But within our community, there were only 26, 27 of us, and
Right.
it was really tough getting in and staying in, so most people didn't make the cut.
They don't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they ring a bell when somebody leaves? What do they?
Totally. How did you know? You've been there?
Do they
No,
really?
just kidding. Yeah.
That's got to get you to question yourself when somebody walks out.
Yeah, it does, you know, and you see, especially when you see an older monk walk out after 30 years.
Right.
You know,
Because then you're questioning, like, am I going down the wrong road?
yeah, I mean, any monk that tells you he's never questioned the path or never thought of leaving is lying to you.
Right.
Even though I wanted to be a monk since I was 4, I thought many times of leaving and not wanting to do it. But you just stick to it because that's what you love. I'm sure when you're running the race, there's points where you go like,
I want to quit every race I do.
right?
Yeah.
It's
every
crazy,
race.
isn't it? Yeah.
Every
it's the same.
workout, everything. I get it.
Yeah. So it's the same way as well. There's this, the thought comes up and you just go like, but this is you, right? Your racing is you. Being monk is me.
There's little crickets that get in your head. And those crickets are telling you, right?
Yeah.
You're on the wrong path. And you've got to get rid of them.
Yeah, and I think it's just being crystal clear of what you want in life right from the start.
Yeah.
And then just having that willpower and the perseverance to follow it through and be unwavering in that.
In your commitment and your true north and
Yeah.
where you want to go, what you
And I
want your
think
legacy to be.
I think most people get swayed just because they don't really know what they want in life. And if you ask most people what they want in life, they say, I want to be happy, and happiness is not a goal.
Right.
Happiness
It's a result.
Yeah, it's a byproduct of something, right? If I eat ice cream or drink beer, I might feel happy, but it's not a goal to be pursued. And I think that's why people get off the path so often, is because they don't know where they're going.
Wouldn't it be good if you got a user's manual?
Exactly. There's no manual for life.
Yeah,
And actually,
there will be. I'm working on one.
I'm working on one too.
We should get together.
Yeah, no, on my website and the online course that I'm creating that I'm going to launch in a few weeks. It's it's about Life's Missing Manual. It's like, how do you deal with your mind? There's no manual for the mind.
Sure.
And when I went to the monastery, one of the first things my guru asked me is, "Do you know how the mind works?" And I'm like, "No." "Do you know how to concentrate?" I'm like, "People told me to concentrate. They've never taught me how to."
Yeah.
I grew up my whole life people telling me, concentrate on this, concentrate on that. Nobody ever said how.
Sure.
And then you don't practice it, and if you don't practice concentration, how can you be good at it? And that's why, so the things that I'm working on is what I've learned at the monastery, of learning how to work with your mind and develop your willpower and develop concentration and work with the energy inside of yourself. How do you sustain energy levels over a period of time?
Big question. We have millions of customers at Spartan Race, and one of the big questions we get is, Joe, how do you stay motivated? Big question for people.
And having higher levels of energy allows you to stay motivated. When you have less energy, it's harder to become motivated. I never think about big projects when I'm tired, because as soon as I think about it, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this.
No, that's a good point,
You
right?
know?
So if you're healthy, if you're eating well, you're exercising,
Yes.
you're more likely, not necessarily going to, but more likely to get motivated.
Yes, you are, and you have more energy, but you also, one of the things that I focus on in life, with working with people and a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with, is learning how to manage energy, especially with, the first step is really identifying what and who are the biggest consumers of energy in life, and people are huge energy consumption machines.
Sure.
The people have energy vampires in their life that just drain and suck energy out of them. So one of the first steps is really eliminating those people from your life who you've identified as energy vampires. And then also things around you. Things can be extremely high energy consuming, like certain TV shows or music or books that you read, magazines.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of my life is really about managing my energy so I can keep high levels of energy, which I can then reinvest into my goal, in my purpose in my life.
Right.
Because the only way I know I can fulfill my purpose is by investing energy in it. So I need to manage my energy first, and that's kind of a big part of my life.
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Why don't we meditate during the break, and then we'll come back and do another little bit.
Sure.
Is that all right?
Sounds good.
All right.
Let's change things up. Time for your meditation break.
It was a great meditation.
It was amazing.
I don't know how you did that for 15 years?
Oh, longer, yeah. I mean, I was a monk for 10, but, I've been doing it for much
Long
longer than
time.
that, yeah.
And what's the longest you've sat and meditated for? I remember my mother used to do it in the living room back in the 70s in Queens. We had monks in the house. It was a crazy place.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is not abnormal at all.
This is normal.
The only thing abnormal is this looks like a high-end robe.
I'm in New York, come on.
You're in New York.
You want me to come in with some rags?
Exactly. The robes I was around were like orange, more of a silk looking.
Yeah, people wear orange who have taken lifetime vows, yeah. So that's the orange signifies that.
Got it.
Yeah. Now, the longest I've sat, probably an hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the way I was trained, it was really not about the quantity, but as opposed to the quality of meditation.
Sure.
So even as monks, we meditated in a group for only an hour. It used to surprise a lot of people, because people always thought monks in a monastery just meditated all day. And, they were sweeping the sidewalks really slowly, like they do in the Hollywood
Walking
movies.
down on their hands.
Exactly.
Right.
But we just meditated 1 hour a day. And the rest of the day, the remaining 23 hours, was spent preparing for the meditation. My guru emphasized a lot on preparation. He said the key is preparation. If you prepare well, your meditation will go well. You don't really even have to work so
Like
hard at
anything
your
in life.
meditation. Yeah.
Right? Prepare and make the job easier.
Yeah, most people don't prepare.
Most people don't prepare.
And,
We're usually reacting.
Right. And our training was all about preparation. How do you prepare to meditate? And most people, when they come and ask me, they say, hey, I've got a crazy life. Do you think if I meditate 10 minutes a day, it'll help me? And I'm like, no way. Don't even bother. Because my question always is, so what are you doing the remaining 23 hours and 50 minutes of your day?
Sure.
If that's a mess, then 10 minutes is not going to help
Not
you.
going to help.
Yeah.
So 2008, you leave the monastery.
Yep.
You find yourself in New York.
Well, normally they have a severance package for long-serving monks.
Really?
Yeah, they do. Yep.
I don't believe it. Really?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was there for 10 years. So they gave me a set of robes, my beads, earrings, $1,000 cash, and a MacBook Pro.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So
And
you were set.
I was set. Well, yeah, totally. And they fly you home. So they were gonna fly me back to Australia, where I grew up in Western Australia, and I didn't want. And I told them to fly me to the mainland U.S. So they flew me to LA. And so I just landed with that and got started with that. And after traveling around for a year, I decided to make New York my home and move
So
there.
you land. You've got this MacBook Pro, $1,000 in your pocket,
Robes.
robe. What do? You go right to McDonald's? What happens?
I checked into a backpacker motel in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
I walked into a room, there were 6 German backpackers and a monk. It was the funniest thing. You should have seen the look on their face.
Right.
Yeah, and then the
then-
next day I went out and bought stuff that you guys have, like
Shoes.
pants, belt,
Yeah.
all kinds.
Apple.
Apple. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Get an email address.
Yeah.
And just got going. But I was very clear what I wanted. And
What did you want? What did you?
my goal was to have my own business, to be an entrepreneur and make my own money. And
Had you been thinking about it while you were in the monastery? For all
yeah,
those years?
the last not all those years. The last couple of years, deciding whether I wanted to leave was probably I wouldn't say probably, was the hardest decision I've ever made in my life, was to leave the monastery.
Yeah.
So the next question would be, what would I do? You know,
You could have ran a web business from the monastery.
could have. We had the largest website in the state of Hawaii.
Really?
Monks, yeah, monks programmed in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and we were trained how to edit movies in Final Cut Pro, design in InDesign, Photoshop. We knew it inside out.
Wow.
Yeah, I learned coding in the monastery.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I literally thought you were preparing for meditation 23 hours a day. I didn't know you were doing
But
anything.
we took those concentration skills into everything that we did. So when we were programming, we focused on programming. You know, when we were building a building, or we were pouring cement on the sidewalk, or sweeping something, or cooking, we focused.
Right.
So in everything that we did throughout the day, we practiced all the tools that we learned. So that when we sat to meditate, we'd been practicing for 23 hours.
All day.
All
Yeah.
day, yeah. So we didn't have so meditation and our spiritual practice was not something separate from life. It was actually integrated into everything that we did in life. And I think that's the key with a lot of people today, is they lead quite separate lives. And they see things as compartmentalized, whereas it's just one. It's you.
And they don't
right?
necessarily put the energy into the thing they're doing the way you did.
No, they don't.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you're going to be talking to someone, then you're here and you're giving them your undivided attention.
Right.
You know, you're not turning to the phone, you're not checking your text messages.
Like I was earlier.
You know, you're
I clearly need a monastery.
you know, and then that
Is
just.
there a short-term deal? Like I can go in for a few weeks, clean myself off, and come.
You know, it doesn't work that
It
way.
doesn't work that way,
right?
I know.
Yeah, you're the last person I need to tell to.
So you find yourself in New York. The world is ending, financial crisis,
Yep.
and there's probably a lot of Wall Street people at that moment that need a monk.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Is that who you? Is that your customer base? Like who'd you start sitting with to try to help them?
Mainly entrepreneurs, so I didn't know very much about business,
Yeah.
and I wanted to surround myself with financially successful entrepreneurs. So I started using some monk tools to create it in my mind and surround myself with successful entrepreneurs.
And it just happened.
Yeah, you start attracting people. If you start to change the shape of your mind, you know, by using certain techniques, you start attracting like-minded people into your life.
And so the first one comes, and the second one comes. Before you know it, you're the center of a
Yeah.
little entrepreneurial network.
Two things. One is I wanted to work with that group of people. Second is I wanted to build a business that's successful. And where do I start? I figured I could go to business school, forget that,
Right.
or learn from someone who's done it and done it really well. So I chose the second option. And I thought if I surrounded myself with these people, I could just learn from them. I believed in the power of a community.
So what were the little things you did in your mind to change yourself?
One, I just realized how the subconscious works. The subconscious is very moldable, and sits back here in your head. And through the power of mantra or affirmation, in Sanskrit language they call it mantra, you can actually shape and create patterns within your mind. And I'm sure when you run, and again I'm assuming that you say like, I can do this, right? You don't say like, oh no, I'm going to fail.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
And through that repetition, you create patterns in your mind. So if you follow a precise technique and system, you'd create patterns in your subconscious, which then become extremely magnetic and start to attract like-minded people towards you. So I used those techniques. I had affirmations or mantras that I would say every morning and every night with, and what they consist of is a concise choice of positive words. So you never say something like, oh, I'd like to be surrounded by successful people, but if I don't, it's okay. That's not a mantra. It's like, I will surround myself with financially successful entrepreneurs who will teach me how to be successful.
Right.
And then it comes with the second thing that's important is a clear visualization. You have to have a clear visual concept of what the end product is going to look like. And then the third part of it, that's the most important component, is the feeling. You have to feel it, because feeling is emotion is energy, and energy is magnetic.
How do you feel it?
You remember a feeling of what it's like to experience sitting with someone who's a successful entrepreneur, spending time with them, walking away and asking yourself, wow, that felt really great. I learned so much and could really use these techniques in helping my business. Like, for example, if you win a race, you can remember the feeling of what it's like, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing an affirmation for your next race, you say, I will win this race, or I can win this race.
And you start to visualize that feeling you had when you won the last race.
Exactly. You visualize yourself going through the little ribbon. Okay, I don't know how your races are, right? You're walking through the ribbon. You
barbed wire in our case, but
barbed wire, exactly. Laser fence, right? Going through that, and then the feeling. What the feeling like was. The feeling is like to win that. So you hold all three in your mind at the same time and you repeat it. It creates a pattern in your subconscious, which then becomes extremely magnetic. It vibrates at a particular frequency of that success, and it attracts things of a similar nature. And this works for even negative things. So if I sat here and I did an affirmation that said, I will be a failure, and I visualized it and I felt it, I'll attract that into my life. So that's when
we put on a race once, and we put out 2 groups of people. One group that were asked to repeat a negative statement, and one group that was asked to repeat a positive statement for 8 hours. Mm-hmm. More often, the group that was repeating the negative all quit the race. Mm-hmm. So it is very powerful. I agree with you. As kooky as it may sound to some people listening, and I have an edge because my mother in the 70s was preaching this stuff.
Right.
So I'm a little more open-minded to it. It works.
It was really, just share with you a quick story. One of my very first workshops I did in New York City, I talked about this and I was dressed all in my monk robe and my paint and everything and stuff. And at the end of this workshop, this guy comes up to me in a suit and he says, I really enjoyed the workshop, but this whole thing about affirmations, I don't really believe it. I think it's a bunch of hogwash. I said, totally fine. I said, look, I just left the monastery 2 months ago. Can you help me prove that what I'm teaching is wrong? And if it's wrong, then I'll promise you I'll never teach it again. So I said, sure, happy to. I said, what do you do? He says, I work in Wall Street. It's like, okay, perfect. It was a Sunday. I said, from Monday to Friday, I want you to say an affirmation 20 times a day. All my stocks, all my shares, and all my bonds are doing really badly, and I'm losing tens of thousands of dollars. I want you to say those exact words. I want you to visualize all the numbers going down, and I want you to feel what it's like to lose tens of thousands of dollars in your investments. I want you to really feel it. That's the most important thing. I want you to do it 20 times a day, Monday to Friday. He looked at me and said, no. And I offered him $50. I didn't have that much money at that time. So I offered him. He said, no, he wouldn't do it. So I said, if you don't believe that a negative affirmation would work, why wouldn't you believe?
Right, sure.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's right. You didn't want to take the chance.
No, and the power of the mind is so powerful, and most people just, like you said, there's no manual for it or haven't been trained how to use it, so they just don't realize the capacity of...
What give me and the audience 3 tips. A lot of entrepreneurs out there, a lot of people trying to get ahead in life.
Yeah.
We went through the affirmation process.
Yeah.
What else? Give us 3 tips.
Any specific area?
Anything, just to be better.
Just to be better. Okay, I would say learning how to manage your energy is really, really important in life. And one of the most important ways to do it is to really look at the people around you. And you can simplify, and this is a very simplified view, obviously we're doing it very quickly. Who are people that are uplifting in your life and who are people that drain you? And the people that drain you, I call them energy vampires. And sometimes these people are colleagues, friends, associates, and sometimes they're families and relatives as well. If you find that these energy vampires are inherently energy vampires, it's not because they're going through a hard time in life and might be going through a troubled period for a couple of years. Those are the people that you want to have more tolerance with. But people who are energy vampires all the time, then these are people you want to let go out of your life.
Discard them.
Yes, and you want to have the courage to do that. And most people can do that with friends or associates or clients, but when it comes to relatives and family,
it's hard.
It's much harder. And I think if you value your life enough, then
you'll do it.
You'll do it. And that's one. The second thing is...
Remove energy vampires from your life, number 1.
Yeah. Number
Well,
two-
affirmations was number one.
Affirmations, number one. Number two, remove energy vampires from your life. Number three, realizing that life is finite. I don't believe life is short. And you hear that all the time. People say life is short, and I don't believe that's the case. And if you told one of your children that they can't have ice cream for a year, they'd feel like it's eternity, right?
Sure. I do 10 years, but
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So life is not short, life is finite. But when you realize life is finite, you value life more. And you become, and I think death is a great impetus for becoming clear what your goal is.
appreciate time.
Appreciate time.
It's the most valuable asset we have.
Yeah, and
Right.
energy. So,
Right.
and become clear, absolutely crystal clear on what your goal and your purpose in life is. And that's the thing that you should figure out right at the beginning of your life. Because once you know that, everything else becomes easy to
Sure.
to
Well,
decide.
you know the road you're going down.
Exactly. But
Right.
if you don't know the
You might
destination,
hit
how
some
do you know?
bumps. You might go through the woods.
Right. But you know
you know where we're going.
If I,
Right.
we're going to LA, I know that we have to head west,
Right.
right? Because we have a destination.
Yeah.
But so most people don't know a goal and therefore don't know what the next step to do
So
is.
they don't end up in LA.
They don't end up in LA, they end up all over the place. So, you know, and people always say to me, it's like, I don't know what I want to do in life. So spend time every day, 5-10 minutes.
Guaranteed they're not going to get there.
No, I can
They
guarantee
don't
you
even
that
know where
too.
they're going.
Exactly, yeah. So if you spend a few minutes each day just really reflecting on what it is you want in life, it's probably one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself.
You're awesome.
Thank you, Joe.
I feel better.
I feel better
I
too.
feel better.
I'd like to reiterate, happy wife, happy life. My cousin gave that piece of advice at a wedding, and I think it's a good one, Joe. That was nice of you to call Courtney. She
lucky.
is always happy.
I got lucky.
You
She's
did.
happy. Yeah.
She's a wonderful one. Dandapani, yeah. I mean, I wonder what would happen if my head would explode if I tried to spend 10 years silent, or if I would just like enlightenment implode. I don't know, Johnny. You seem much more zen than me.
What I found really interesting with this was there was a real, if I can use one of your words, juxtaposition, a dichotomy per se.
Our word.
Here's a guy who had clearly put in the discipline, had put in the time, had done the 10 years of extreme discipline, and yet now was very much re-engaging with the world in a very modern way. And, there's a bit of talk off camera. We're debating the validity of that. And what are your guys' thoughts on that? So here's a guy who, we have an idea of what a monk is, and in a lot of ways, I think he's very different than that.
Well, I think that's right. I think we have this idea, right, that this monk is very simple, no material things, sacrificing everything. And so when I saw him in New York City, targeting Wall Street types in a very exclusive-looking monk robe, yeah, there's a lot of things running through my head. But as I've gotten to know him more, because we saw each other 3 or 4 months later, he's a real interesting guy. And anybody who could, for 10 years, just sacrifice, like someone in the military or a wrestler or even a forager.
Or somebody in Supermax prison.
Or somebody in a
Yeah, sure,
supermax prison
yeah.
could just sit and sweep. Good point, though, on the prison.
I thought he was wearing a Snuggie.
All right, Colonel Nye's not into monks.
Okay, all right. I think there needs to be a lot of like reverence and respect paid for that tradition and paid for what they did for 10 years. And obviously it's something like we can't relate to. If you're not in the military, you don't understand the whole culture of it.
My point is, I would go back to what Joe was talking about. My vision of it didn't match up to what I saw, so I'm having trouble with that, as Johnny said, with the juxtaposition of that, because there's something. I don't understand having that sacrifice and then bringing it over to here and
Trying to help people who are sacrificing their whole lives on
Yeah,
Wall Street.
but
I love Wall Street.
I gave up. I gave up.
My dad is there.
Was that his living room you were interviewing him in?
No, it was a wealthy friend of.
Oh, all right. Well,
ours.
maybe that's
Yeah.
my problem then, just watching,
Got
because
it.
I thought,
Oh, you saw
there's
that
some
living room.
material possessions.
Got it.
Okay,
Got
I
it.
thought those
Wealthy people need that advice.
No,
isn't it?
all
No,
Don
but
Depani owns is a broom and a robe.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Well,
And
see,
his
now that
beads.
matches my
Image.
my image. Okay.
But you know what's funny about this, though, because this is actually what I was sort
And
of
a
getting at the
passport?
start, is
And a
how
passport.
important our image is to us. The idea of why should I be concerned, and I had the same impression, but why should I be concerned what Don Depani is doing? And why should, because it offends my idea of what a monk should be, here I'm judging Dandapani and saying you should be this.
Yeah.
And I know what you're
You
saying.
should always
even though I
celebrate it.
only know
Like,
this much about
yeah,
it.
oh,
Yeah,
you're
that's
a
right,
billionaire.
exactly.
This is what you should be. I mean, that is what the downfall of most of society is just being like, you don't fit into this, so it's kind of like, who cares? Celebrate your journey, what you've done, who you are, and the knowledge that you're bringing to us, which I think for a lot of people who would have absolutely no access points to monks or that kind of philosophy, it's very helpful to have someone who can be a bridge gapper or
We're in agreement. That's actually exactly what I'm trying to say as well. Yeah.
Well, Johnny, why don't you say it?
No, I just
in a way that I can understand.
as you pounced, I wanted to let you know that we were on the same team here. But, although I do feel before the next interview, I have to separate you and Colonel Nye, because it's the second one in a row you've almost come to blows.
Colonel Nye, I agree with everything you say.
At times.
but yeah, just to finish that thought, the idea is that that if he were the monk who had never left the monastery and stayed there with his esoteric knowledge and whatever else, he wouldn't be in a position to help out these people on Wall Street. And so they need help as much as anyone needs help. So I think we all agree, and I think we were all taking a shot at ourselves saying, because I had this image, I kind of rejected his message. And as Joe says, he's gotten to know him better and said, actually, he's the real deal. I mean, yeah, it is weird because we're expecting to be a certain way, but here's a guy who actually has found a way to bridge
the
that.
litmus test of.
Well, I happen to be a monk
Monkhood.
expert.
Yeah,
He had a monk in his living room.
Wait, tell us more about the monk in the living room.
So my mother found spirituality and became a vegan and used to do trips to India back in the early 70s, and started to recruit, for whatever reason, monks to our house. So if they were passing through the neighborhood or they happened to live in the neighborhood for whatever reason, certainly when we moved to Ithaca, I'd come home from school and there was a monk, typically in a orange robe that was not nearly as nice as Dandapani's, but nonetheless had incredible messages for me and my sister, and it took years for my sister and I to open up our minds to the fact that this would be a person or a message we'd want to hear. But there is important things around discipline and simplicity.
Non-attachment, like
Sure,
when your mom
sure.
threw away all your stuff.
As Johnny said, I wasn't attacking any of that. I was attacking myself for not understanding
Right.
what I was looking at.
Yeah.
All right, so we're good with the
I don't
monk.
think you need
We're all good with the monk, absolutely.
But like, sometimes your parents go on a vacation and pick up a T-shirt at the airport on the way home, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel, you sure your mom wants me picking up maybe like one of these bald-headed guys at the airport?
My mom went to India and all I got was this monk in the living room.
All I got was this Hare Krishna at the airport.
It's certainly possible. It's certainly possible. But what's important is what came out of it, and my sister and I got. So it opened our minds, and so we were open to things. Listen, when I was first introduced to this idea of, hey, you should put on a military-inspired obstacle race, I thought it's ridiculous. Who would do that? But if you have an open mind, you see things others don't.
Well, now we can go up to the stone monastery at the top of your mountain, Joe.
There is a reason that stone the stone cabin is there.
Yeah.
What is the sound of one hand clapping? Let's leave it with that.
Thank you for listening to another epic story of success.
Find show notes, video, and audio from this epic episode. Please visit SpartanUpPodcast.com/075.
Or follow us on Twitter at SpartanUpPod. The Spartan Up Podcast is brought to you by Spartan.
To find a race near you, visit Spartan.com.